It's the Introvert Dating Success Podcast, the show for introverted men that's all about learning how to attract beautiful women and still get your precious alone time. And now, here's your host, dating coach and fellow introvert, Harry Wilmington.
Hey guys.
Dating coach and fellow introvert, Harry Wilmington.
Ha! That's funny. I had my live on the other channel, so I got to hear myself twice. Anyway, hey guys, welcome to the Introvert Dating Success Show. I'm your host, as always, Harry Wilmington. This is the place where you come weekly to learn how to date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. Now, I'm using a microphone that should be just directly down this way so you can hear me. So hopefully, I have people working on construction stuff downstairs, so hopefully you won't be able to hear that. If you can hear that, just know when I repost these things back up later, that sound will not be there because of the advent of technology where I can take those kind of sounds out. But hopefully you can't hear that. And hopefully you're here today to get some much needed knowledge. And today we're going to be answering your questions as always. And we're going to be focusing on our main topic, which is called, do all women test men and is it necessary? I had an interesting conversation with somebody over my comment section this past week where they were complaining about the fact that women do pull-away tests and test men in general. And I have always had an opinion about that it was different from his. And so he asked me a bunch of questions and I said, you know what? This would actually make for a great show conversation because my most popular video is my pull-away test video. And so many men still get bothered and perturbed by the fact that women are trying to test them, or they feel like women are trying to test them in the dating process. And so we're going to talk about that extensively today. As always, this show is ultimately about you. So if you have any questions you want to ask me during the course of the show, you can leave it in the comment section and I will happily answer it for you. If the show goes over a little bit and I don't have time to answer it, leave your questions in my comments on any of my videos. I review all comments during the course of the week to get the questions that I'll be answering and in many cases make full-on shows about, all right? Also, guys, you can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com for ebooks, audiobooks, programs, coaching, all those things that are designed to help you date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time, all right? So I had somebody actually leave a comment before I even started the show because, I post these in advance so you guys can see what I'm going to be talking about. So you can also leave questions in the comments before I even start the show, which is always nice. So I have a question in the chat, and the question goes like this. He asks, successful relationships require a lot of work. What should introverts know before taking on this responsibility? Well, there's a few things. The first most important thing is you still need your alone time. And so you need to be able to ask for that alone time and have times where you don't see her. I always talk about on this show how women's interest builds for you in the times that you're not seeing them. So that's one of the major reasons you want to not text them so much, call them so much, and try to ask them out extensively. But you need that time too. And I think with introverts especially, oftentimes we have this belief that in order to attract women, we have to be more extroverted in nature. And so we think that means having to call more, having to hang out with them more, having to see more of their friends and family earlier than we want to. And I'm here to tell you that that is hogwash and that you do not need to do that. Like I stress extensively on the show about being patient, about pacing out your time with her, about limiting your text and phone calls, except for when you're asking on a date. All right. So I think the biggest thing for introverts to know is that dating a woman does not require as much work as you think it should. You're thinking you got to spend an exorbitant amount of time in the beginning, in those first 3 months. Her not seeing you a whole lot is going to actually make her fall for you a lot faster. And I think once as an introvert, you're able to realize this and actually see that you're getting better results when you're not doing all the things and trying to be there all the time, then you'll be able to have a bit of a rest in your head and it'll be a lot easier for you to date. I found that as I really start to learn dating, I realized, so most of this is me being patient, and most of this is not having to call and text all the time and not always being there and not always checking up on her. And that'll work. Fantastic, because I don't want to do that work anyway. I just want to know when to make the right moves and how to make them. I don't want to have to think I have to do these moves all the time in order to attract women. So that's what I would say in reference to that particular question. All right, let's see. Let's move on to some other questions we got this week. So I had a person comment under my real life consequences of dating single moms video. And I think it was a guy that commented, and he said, 2 major keys in dating single mothers is the behavior of the children's father and the status of her financial situation or job. If these 2 things are good, then it can work if a man is fortunate enough to sidestep a false accusation of, we'll say, the snuggle struggle when she didn't request it. So I'll say this. I think those are 2 major things. I think that, I think if the child's father is going to be just like the worst ever, then you're going to have a hard time dealing with that single mom in general. And I do believe that if she has a better financial status, then she's not going to be hitting you up for money for both her and her kids. So I think that is very, very true. But I think it's a bit short-sighted in the sense of like, there are several other things that pop up that men need to be considering as it pertains to if they're going to date a single mom. Now, I went over that extensively in my 10 reasons to not date single moms video, but here are some other things to consider if you're thinking about possibly trying to date a single mom outside of what he mentioned of her child's father's, how he is, and the financial status. So you need to consider, for one, parenting styles and the ability to discipline. If you get with this single mom, is she going to allow you to come in with how you would do things and implement them on her child, or is she going to fight you along the way? If this child happens to get in some kind of trouble, or is talking back, or is doing various things that you feel would require disciplinary action, are you dating the kind of single mom that's going to allow you to do that? Because if you don't, I'm going to tell you now, it's going to be hard, because I have friends that have gotten with people that have kids, and when it comes time to discipline them, if the person that actually had the kids doesn't want them disciplined a certain way, there's nothing that other person can do about it. On top of, you have to also consider the parent that's not in the picture, how they want their kid to be disciplined and how they feel about you disciplining their kid in a certain way. So it's not just the person you're with that's going to be judging that, it's also the other parent of the kid. And so that could be a major thing to consider. The other thing you need to consider is her support system. Does she have one? Does she have like sisters and aunts and uncles and parents that are in the picture that are facilitating a good community for both her and the child? If not, then I got news for you. All of that's going to fall on you. Or if she has a community that is like really toxic and she's in a family that has a lot of turmoil and stuff, well, guess what? You now get thrown into that turmoil with her and her kid and her family. You have to really look at that before you decide, I think I want to date this single mom. Another major thing that needs to be considered is the emotional maturity of the child, because realistically, you could be with a mom that's absolutely great, and she has kids running around that are complete tormentors who lash out all the time or have, BPD or emotional fluctuations happening all the time, every which way. And that's going to be your responsibility to take on, because whether you want to believe it or not, guys, at the point that you get with the single mom and you guys move in together, you are now the head of the household. And even though they're her kids, she's going to be looking to you to help with these kids. And if the kids aren't going to help you by at least having some kind of emotional stability, then it's going to be a major problem and it's not going to be a fun time. Another major key that needs to be considered is the kid's sex. Let's be real, guys. All right. If you get with a single mom and she has daughters, you best believe you got to be on your best behavior 100%. Now, you're probably thinking, but dude, I should be on my behavior as good all the time. But what I'm saying is that, unfortunately, there are many situations out there whereby daughters who say they have a fight with you, right? They might go to their mom and be like, oh, I had a fight with so-and-so. And also he touched me and looked at me weird and odd. And that happens more than you wanted to believe, guys. So I'm telling you, and it's not that, if she has a son, it's any better, but I'm just saying, particularly if she has a daughter, it's going to be a lot easier for that daughter to try to put something on you if she doesn't get along with you. All right. So that's something you also have to be mindful of. And then mobility. If you got a job that if you get a promotion of some kind, you got to pick up and move. Well, is the mom that you're with and her kid going to want to move along with you? Or is that going to be a hassle? And in many cases, again, let's say you're dating the single mom and the dad's in the same state as the mom. The dad's got rights too. So you can't just up and leave. You got to talk to the dad about it. You got to see if he's cool with it. And some might not be. So your ability to be able to move from state to state, city to city, town to town could be extremely affected by the fact that you're dating somebody that has a kid. So those are just a few of the other major things that need to be considered before you just go out there and say, well, as long as she has good finances and the baby daddy's cool, then I'm in there and it'll be great. Because there are so many other things that could go wrong in that situation. And dating itself is already going to be hard enough without bringing extra people in. So really look at those major keys before you consider going that route. Just saying. Let's see, continuing on here, we have another comment. Let me just delete this one that I got from last week. Did I answer? Oh, it's wrong keyboard. I was here. All right. Let's see. Another question that I got this week. Let's see what this one says. It's kind of short. Oh, okay. I'll get to this next one here. Okay, so I had a comment that was left under my comment. Hold on. Okay, I had a comment that was left under my 10 reasons to not date single. Sorry, I'm all listed out. Okay. I had a comment that was left under my video, 5 reasons that women need 3 months to solidify their feelings. And I talk about how women need that time to really properly vet you. And we're going to go over that extensively in today's main part of the show. But this guy left a comment and said, men should actually be even slower vetting because women are way better at hiding their true selves. And this is what I try to stress to you guys is that women are going to, on average, take their 2 to 3 months to vet you. You need to be taking that same time. And a lot of times, guys, let's face it, we see a hot woman, we want her curves, we want her body, we want to be in there like swimwear, and we're just like, well, she talks fine and she's pretty. I'm in there. And then in the process, we throw out any kind of vetting we would have done because she's hot and attractive and smells nice. And we end up getting ourselves into situations that are harder to get out of once we've tried to lock ourselves down with that person, because now we're seeing these toxic red flags after we've already decided we want to bang them, right? And so I agree. I believe that men, if nothing else, should be taking the same 3 months. But here's my general principle, right? Is that whatever speed that she's going at, you need to go a tad bit slower than she does, because what we ultimately want is her trying to come to you to ask for basically permission to advance to these various levels. So for example, if in the beginning of the dating phase, you're only asking her out once a week, well, you do that because it is too slow. And if she starts to like you and wants to spend more time with you, she will come to you and say, hey, I know we saw each other already on Thursday, but how about you come over Saturday? Or if you've been on the first date, maybe you didn't go for the kiss, she's a little frustrated by that. That's great, because now on the second date, she's going to start making moves and these little passive little hints that indicate, dude, please kiss me. So this is why I always tell you guys, if she's chasing you, she can't be replacing you, because too many guys are rushing in trying to do all the things and be all the things and do all the physical actions, and it's causing women to run. We don't want women to run. But if you're moving just slightly slower than they are, then it's enough to where they know you're interested because you're asking them out on dates. But if they're wanting things to progress, then they know they got to make moves that hopefully you can read. And this is why I like to teach you guys the various types of signals that women will send to you that indicate that they're ready to make these various moves. Now, if you need help with that, you can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and sign up for one of my programs, or sign up for coaching, where I can teach you all the ins and outs of signals that women send that indicate they're interested. And in fact, I'm working on a bunch of ebooks now. I'll probably put an ebook together at some point that really lays out the various signals that women send and the things that they say that indicate, hey, this thing here means I want this to happen and I want you to do it. But guys, don't be afraid to move slightly slower than women. This goes from everything from how you're contacting them by way of texting, to how you're asking them out, to the physical moves you're making. Because think about when you get to the bedroom, even that is going to be a bit of a slow seduction. You don't just get to the bedroom and then just like rip her pants off and just go in. It's like, you got to butter her up. You got to make her feel things. You got to make sure that she's dripping down there. And that takes time. So if we're paralleling you hooking up with her to the dating process in general, the slower you go until she just can't take it anymore and wants to basically darn near tell you, hey, do this thing, then the better off you're going to be in your dating process. So hopefully it helps you out. All right, let's see what this next one is here. Let's see. Oh, this is a nice little comment I got this week. So this guy left a comment on some random video, and he says, I just want to say, I can't thank you enough for turning me on to Kevin Samuels. He was one of a kind, and the world will miss him dearly. I just wish I would have known about him a few years ago. watching a lot of his content has reinforced a lot of the ways I thought about things and has also changed my view about other things and is making my life better every day as a man. Thank you so much for honoring him and bringing attention to a great human being. Keep up your good work. It is much appreciated. Well, appreciate that. This is the reason why I made the album that I made called Kevin Samuels Was Right, where it's basically like taking some of his principles and then like using them as the basis to make songs. Because I caught up on his stuff like early 2021, and it's like everything he was saying by that time he was giving a lot of advice to women, but he started out like giving advice to men from like 2017 to 2021, and was still intermittently doing it in the course of giving advice to women. And people really hated on him because it was like, oh my God, like he's saying this misogynistic stuff and he's telling women that they can't have the guys they want, and how could he? And I had to go look back at his old content and realize, oh, this is BS, because he said the exact same stuff to men 3 years ago when nobody was paying attention. And now that he's saying it to women, but not changing up his delivery, people are mad about it. But he's got a lot of nuggets in his videos, even still, that are just chock full of like actual information. Now for guys, I recommend go back and watch his guys content, because everything on like he talks about on fashion, how to dress, what to wear, what women are looking for, what men need to do in order to better themselves first to be able to get women. That stuff is hard, practical advice. And there are some shows where he's talking to men harder than he's talking to women. I think most men are set up to be able to take that information in a lot better, because we're just like, I just need the information to be better. I don't care if it's an insult. I just need to be better. And so that was a lot of his content. And so it's funny now seeing a lot of women in the YouTube space that were hating on his stuff when he first came out. And now that he's been dead for like almost a year and some change, they now agree with what he was saying or are taking his talking points and using them. So I find that very fascinating. But yeah, appreciate the comment. Yeah, but be sure to check out the album. Kevin Samuels Was Right. You can check it out for free at my website. All right. That one. So we'll do one more of these and then we'll get into the main crux of the show. As always, guys, if you guys have any questions you want to ask me in the chat, you are welcome to do so. Good evening, Quincy Catchings. Good evening, Kabiri, I think it is. Appreciate you guys' support and watching of the show. Let's see. Let me see this person said here. So I had a guy leave a comment on one of my videos. He said, there is a girl that I like. I tried to contact her, and when I texted her for the first time, expressing my feelings and my desire to get to know her better, she didn't respond. So I decided to give her some space. I did notice that she had blocked me without sending a single text. However, after I gave her some space, I noticed that she unblocked me again, but the past situation has made it difficult for me. Should I text her again or talk to her again? I would appreciate an honest suggestion. I've never had this strange feeling about someone before. Sometimes I have a feeling that I'm losing her slowly. Also, should I go talk to her about this? I really fear rejection. She didn't reject me, but she also ignored me when I text. Oh my God. So you're about to get a class in this one real quick. All right. So let's start off here, right? So the big mistake that you made was when you first contacted her, you went and expressed all these feelings and desires for her, and you haven't actually taken her out yet. And you got to understand from a woman's perspective, right? Is that she's sitting there minding her own business, living life, doesn't know who you are. And then you come out of nowhere and say, hey, so I don't really know you that well, but I just want you to know that I really, really like you. And I have feelings for you and I have a desire to take you out and show you the world and I'll be blah, 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 blah. That is a lot of feeling to get from a guy that she doesn't know. And if he's in the circle, she's not aware of having feelings for, all right? Women tend to fall in love slower than guys do. And so you can't just go to a woman on jump and say, hey, so I really like you a whole lot, because she doesn't know at that point in time what she's actually done to deserve all this like that you have for her. Yes, surprisingly, gentlemen, women want to actually feel as though they have earned your time and attention and effort. And so when you just come and freely give it to her, and again, she doesn't really know who this guy is, it's going to freak her out. So you can't just, even if you meet a girl at a party and you get her number, the first text to her should not be, I really like you and I have these feelings for you. Because again, for women, it's a slow build. She needs to spend time with you. She needs to be able to vet you. She needs to be able to see consistency in you. She needs to see if you guys actually gel well together and have chemistry on dates. And so those things are going to help her determine if she has feelings for you. And this is why when you come to her and say, I have all these feelings, she can't comprehend that. And it's going to freak her out because she's like, but we haven't spent any time together. So how does this guy already have feelings for me when we have no time spent? And what I try to stress to you guys is when you have those feelings of like, I automatically like this person, that is lust. That is nature saying, hey, you should hook up with this person. Now that's nature. If you want to hook up with her, that's fine. But there's a process to be had, so it's consensual. And also, so she feels like when that time comes, she's making the right decision. So that's the big mistake you made, was admitting feelings. When you don't actually have feelings, you have lustful feelings that are pulling you to want to hook up with this person, but there's still a process that needs to be done to make sure that she's on board with that. And it also gives you time to figure out if this is actually a person you want to do things with in the first place. Now, at the point that she blocked you, guy, she blocked you because that's not the first text that a woman ever wants to get from a guy, ever. Guys watching this, the first text you send to a woman should never be, I just have all the feelings in the world for you. I'm telling you, it's going to chase them away, all right? But she's unblocked you because when she blocked you, it gave her time to be away from you. And what most women are doing this. When a woman blocks you and then like unblocks you later on, what that should say to you is, hey, okay, I had to block you because you were bringing in a lot of intense emotions and feelings that I was not ready for. I'm hoping that if I unblock you, you've had time to reasonably realize that you don't know me enough yet to have all these feelings. And maybe, just maybe, we can have normal conversations that will eventually lead to a connection of some kind, as long as you're not pushing it. All right. So that's what that means. So now that she's unblocked you, you don't want to rush right in and be like, thanks for unblocking me, we should go on a date, blah, 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 blah. But like, you could just very easily, like, she sees your stuff, great. Now let's see if now that she's unblocked you, if you guys are connected on social media, if she's like liking pictures of yours, or if she's like commenting on your various posts, or if she's like sending you memes. Like, if she's unblocked you, then at some point she's probably going to also reach out to you as indication that, hey, she actually wants to communicate with you. But this is not your time to be expressing feelings. Now, at some point, you could just ask her out like a normal person. Like, you don't have to be like, hey, and I think guys make the mistake of thinking we need to admit all these feelings before we ask a woman out. And that's putting the cart before the horse. What you do is you ask a woman out for an event of some, to go out on an event of some kind. You wait for her to say yes, you take her out. And then at the event, you start doing things that are going to hopefully build up her feelings and interest. All right. So at some point in the pathway, you could just say, hey, was going to go check out this restaurant downtown. Would love to take you. Let me know if you're free. Boom. That's it. Just ask it like that. And don't be like, hey, I saw this restaurant and thought of you and how great you look in a dress. And I really want to see, like, don't add all that extra stuff. Just say, hey, found a place downtown. Looks like a cool restaurant. I'd love to take you. Let me know when you're free. Boom. Leave it at that. If she hits you back and says, that sounds great, let's do it, fantastic. If she says, but we're just going as friends, right? Leave it alone. If she says, oh, I can't make it because my dog died and my aunt's in town, that means no. Also, it is what it is, all right? But so all that to say, like, definitely try again, but just know when you're trying again, don't overly ask her to where she's thinking you're bringing all these feelings in again, and then it turns her off, all right? So hopefully, guy, this helps you out. So let me see if I get rid of this one here. So what I'm going to do now, guys, before I get into the main topic, because I do want to talk about the whole, this guy's long commentary that he made on my particular video about testing, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this video first. I'm going to play this video because I think it's going to give some context to the things that I want to talk about in today's show as it pertains to understanding how women function and how women date. So this video I'm going to show you, I'll pull it up on the screen here. See if I can put it up here. Yes. All right. Okay, so I just got a question in the chat. So before I get to this part of the show, I will go ahead and answer his question. So guy in the chat is asking a question. He says, I'm in an on and off relationship with a young lady for 5 years. I'm not on social media, but people tell me the things she posts. I've mentioned them to her. She posts now to get a reaction from me. Well, for one, I'll say this. If you're in an on and off relationship, that is worrisome because I don't have a reasoning for why you guys are constantly on and off, whether it's you guys are together, then she breaks it off or you're breaking it off, or you're both breaking it off, but that indicates that there's a level of volatility there and probably a level of disrespect that's being shown by either side that results in these on and off things happening. So first off, I would figure that out, because the time that you've spent being an on and off again, you could have been with like other people that would have been more on and off. And hey, I'm speaking from experience. I was with somebody, we were on for a few months, we were off for a year, we were on again, we were off another few months, and then we were on for like a few years. And then I ended up, we got engaged and I broke it off, in part because I eventually realized, man, like there's just the reason I kept getting out of the relationship was because there was stuff that kept popping up that I wasn't a fan of. And then I would get out, she would come back and convince me like, oh my God, I've changed and blah, 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 blah. I get back in, and then some of those things would go back to being the way they were before. So I don't really recommend being in on and off situations unless both of you are like, look, we've made these significant changes and things, and we're willing to work these things out. Now, in the chat, he's saying that the reason they're on and off again is because of arguments. And that is its own category of things, because here's what I understand, okay, is that ultimately, as the guy, and I know guys don't want to hear this, right? As the guy, you are the leader of the relationship, which means more often than not, if there are a lot of arguments that are happening, then that usually means that on some level, either you don't have emotional intelligence or she's not feeling heard enough when she's trying to tell you stuff that's happening, and that can cause a lot of disagreements, all right? Now, you mentioned that she's ready to get married. If you're not ready to get married, then it is what it is. But also think about the fact that you guys have been on and off for years. So if you're not ready to get married, that means that you're probably seeing where there are things that still need to be fixed, possibly in the relationship. And I will say this, people are who they are, and at the point people get to their 20s, it's very rare that they're going to actually want to make changes, especially to please you. Like if they're going to make changes to, better themselves, that's one thing, but you cannot go into any relationship thinking, well, if they love me enough, they're going to change, or yeah, they're this way now and they have this like now and they do this thing and they say they need this thing, but I can make them not need that. Like no amount of love is going to make a person want to change those things for you if that's inherently who they are, So you have to ask yourself, are you seeing yourself realistically getting married to this person? And again, like I said, I was engaged once. I had to be the one to break off the engagement because I realized, based on our situation and how things are going and what things she needed and what things I needed, that as much as I cared for her, ultimately, if I'm looking at a long-term prospect, this wasn't going to be it. Like I could already see more fights coming. I could see us both trying to battle for the things that we want that the other person either can't or isn't willing to give them. And I had to make the grown decision of like, as much as I want to be with them, it's not going to work out, And going on now a few years, I'm glad I made that decision. And I hope that she's better for that decision as well, because I knew that in terms of a long term, like she'd eventually be frustrated with me for various things, So that's what we call grown man decisions. Like you have to really look at your situation and say, but is this going to be a healthy situation? Yes. And I don't want you to think too that just because you've been with this woman on and off for 5 years, that you have to say yes. Like there's this whole theory called sunken cost fallacy, where people think the amount of time that they've spent doing something means that they should keep on doing that thing or investing time into it. And we do that a lot of times with people like, oh, I've been with her for 2 or 3 years. And even though we fight all the time, I spent so much time with her that I can't break this up. Yes, you can. Like nothing, if you feel like up to this point, you spent all this effort and energy, well, you can always like not do that, because the reality is that tomorrow's another day. And if you feel as though your energy would be better spent elsewhere, or you could find somebody else that you'd better get along with, then that is a route you can go. But to your point, if you guys are on and off for 5 years, and then you don't like the fact that she's on social media or that she's posting certain things, then that comes down to a respect level thing. Because, I'm not for the whole, like, you have to police what a woman posts up. But this is why I tell guys that early on in the dating process, before you agree to a relationship, you have to negotiate the things that you will and will not accept. And one of those things could be her social media. So if it had been me, before we got into the relationship, I would have said, okay, so let me ask you a question. Like, do you have social media? Do you have Instagram, Facebook, yada, yada, yada? Oh, yeah, sure, I have it. Okay, great. So can I take a look at it? Fine. Okay. So I'm noticing your pictures here are a little risque. Like, how would you feel about not posting these? Well, I think I should be able to post whatever I want to. Okay, great. So let's keep things the way they are. And she'll probably be like, I'm sorry, what? Yeah, like, you don't want to, you want to post these kind of pictures. Hey, you can do what you want to do. Let's keep things the way they are. Because you can't force a woman to change for you. She has to be able to change based on decisions that she's making. So you could go that statement with the marriage thing. Let's say your hangup is, hypothetically, you want to get married to her, but she's posting these pictures or she's dressing certain ways when you go out in public with her, and you find it kind of embarrassing because she's dressing risque and you only want those parts seen at home. She comes to you one day, so I really want to get married and I don't know what the holdup is. You could say, okay, let me ask you a question. Your social media, what kind of pictures are you posting? Well, I mean, I got a few bikini pics and, some lingerie, blah, 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 blah. Okay, if we get married, would you be cool like not having those pictures up? Well, no, because even though I'm married, I still want to get attention and feel sexy, blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. That's fine. Let's keep things the way they are. What? But I should be able, how dare you, blah, 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 blah. No. Hey, I'm not going to tell you to change up anything. I'm just saying that I don't personally want to be married to somebody that has their TNA hanging out for the world to see. So if that's what you want to do, that's totally fine. Let's keep things the way they are. And that's it. And that's your whole argument. You're not going to try to say, you got to take these pictures down, because that rarely works. Like, ask dudes around the world how many times it's worked where they try to force a woman to do some stuff that she didn't want to do and see what the reaction is you get. So you can just say, hey, your boundaries are this. And if you want to continue to post pictures, it is what it is. You do you. Let's keep things the way they are. And then she has a decision to make. Does she now, of her own accord, decide to change that? Or does she continue to post pictures? At which point you can say, you have the choice also to be able to say, hey, you know what? You're still posting pictures. That's totally cool. I'm going to be over here. Best of luck to you. Because you have the right to date somebody that doesn't do that. I've been an oddity in that most of the women I've gotten to long-term relationships with either don't really have a lot of social media, or if they do, they barely post things, or they're mostly posting memes. And admittedly, I've dated a lot of professional women, and which is great because like lawyers, doctors, teachers, etc., because of their reputation in terms of them trying to get future jobs, they by default don't post those things. So I haven't really ever had to worry about somebody that I'm dating posting up inappropriate pics because they just don't do that. But ideally, a woman that's respecting you and understanding that if you guys get married, that her body is solely for you, just like your body is solely for her, that she's not going to make the decision to continue to do that. But some women will. And hey, some dudes will be totally cool with their woman posting up all over Instagram and Facebook and whatever with their TNA hanging out. And that's those guys. And those guys had to have that conversation. Hey, babe, I'm cool with you doing whatever. I want people to know that I have a hot chick. And that could be them. But if that's not you, you don't have to be that kind of girl. It really is that simple. And I'm telling you, like, I know you're thinking part of it's like, again, you've been with her 5 years, on and off. I imagine the hookup's probably good, so it's a little bit hard to get away from it. Because again, I've been there, done that. But again, you got to look at long term. Short term, this feels good. How do you see this long term realistically? I can't tell you what that is for you. I just can tell you that in my experience, I find that if you're seeing things now that you don't like, those things only get multiplied more when you get married. If you don't see it going the marriage route, and you don't see her wanting to be happy just being a couple without having a ring or paperwork involved, then this is not the girl for you. It's really that simple. So hopefully that helps you out. All right. So let's get into today's main topic. So let's bring this back up on the screen here. So in order to give context for what I'm going to talk about in terms of like being able to better understand women, I'm going to play this video, and this guy is going to be talking about when parents seemingly don't support you and your dream, what that is actually about. All right. So let's go ahead and play this clip.
My father was somebody who would say things that hurt me, but he wasn't trying to be hurtful. And until I understood him, that's when I got relief for myself. Say your parent says, what's that gonna do for you? That job ain't gonna get you no money. You trying to be understood here is, wow, my close people don't support me. My close people not for me, because you just want validation, you just want affirmation. But if you seek to understand them, you hear, okay, this is my mom or my dad. They just want me to have a certain level of stability, and they're a little anxious that either I'm not searching for stability or I don't have the proper tools to get stability. They do support my dreams. They just don't want me, while I'm pursuing my dreams, to not find stability, because if they die, what will happen to their little girl, to their son? Until you understand that, you'll always feel like they just don't get me. So the relief doesn't come from you being understood. The relief comes from, oh, I understand them. It's not personal. And I know it's hard when you live with people. That living with people, Chuck, is difficult. Everybody at home's got to learn how to communicate with each other.
Powerful thing. So the most powerful thing you said in there was like, basically, like the power doesn't come from them understanding you, it's you understanding them. And I like that. And I'm going to parallel that to dating, because I think the biggest reason that men get so frustrated with women in the dating world is because they fundamentally are different from us in how they think about things and how they function. And men don't understand women. And because they don't understand them, they just feel as though if the woman would just act the way that I act, then this would be a lot easier. Or if women understood me and what men go through, then maybe we can meet on some level playing field. And I do believe that women should do a better job of understanding men. But this is a men's channel, and I'm talking to you as a guy. So what I'm going to tell you as a guy is that as you begin to understand women more, a lot of the ways in which they operate and function in the dating world is going to be less annoying to you. So I bring this up because there was a guy that wrote in my comments this week under my 5 ways to pass a woman's pull away test video. And he had a few comments and a few questions as it pertained to women testing men in general. So I'm going to go through what he said, what I said, and then what he said, and then I'm going to break down the various things, because I told him I would go over this in a show, and I really wanted to dive deep into the questions that he was asking, right? So this guy starts off, he leaves this comment on my page. He says, "I think you're a feminist, mate." Must be from Australia. I don't know. Anyway, he says, "What you're forgetting is it's just nasty to test someone and create a situation that makes someone question their position. This is negative because it has a breakup tone to it, and most men don't understand why this needs to be explored when everything is good." Now, I agree with him. I do agree that most men don't understand the reasoning behind why women feel that testing is necessary. And the honest reason for that is because as men in the dating world, we are a privileged bunch in the sense of the number of things that we have to look out for that are going to be a danger to us on the whole are significantly less than women, because we are stronger than women. We are oftentimes bigger than women, especially because most women are looking for taller, bigger dudes, and we have more power and control than women typically do. And so in order for a woman to feel comfortable with a guy, she has to be able to build up a level of trust, and that she's not going to be harmed by him in a physical manner. Now, I know there are going to be dudes out there that see this and say, "Oh, but Harry, guys get abused by women too. In fact, statistically, as many men get abused as women get abused." Let's not even argue that point. All right. Let's say that's true. Statistically, let's say an equal number of men and an equal number of women have been abused by the opposite sex. All right. Let's say that's absolutely true. What's the difference? The difference is that in the situations where it's happening to the men, those men are choosing not to be violent. They have women that might be hitting them or kicking them or scratching them or whatever. And it's not that they can't fight back. It's that they're choosing to not fight back. But they still have the build of somebody that, if they had a bit more confidence, could completely manhandle a woman to where she would be on the ground. And in fact, most of the time that the guys don't do that is because they know no matter how much the woman's hitting them, if they manage to punch back, kick back, whatever, the cops are going to be called. They're going to come to the house, see both people beaten up, and think to themselves, the woman must have been self-defending herself, so let's take the guy in. So that's why the stats are like that. But on the whole, that doesn't mean those guys aren't still built like they could overtake a woman, all right? So I say this because, let's say you're a guy that's being abused at home by your wife, right? Well, if you're walking out in public on day to day, most women around you don't know that. All they know is that they see you, your build, your height, your weight, and think, "Oh my God, this guy could potentially overtake me," okay? So for a woman, in order to feel safe and secure, she has to make sure that you're going to be the kind of guy that's not going to hurt her and do any kind of harm to her. And unfortunately for women, they can't just go up to you on a date and say, "Hey, so you look like you're a nice guy, but would you ever beat me up? Would you ever seriously hurt me?" I just want to ask you that question. Because what most guys say, Most guys would say, no, I would never do that. Why would you ask that question? And I think men get hurt by that idea because you think that you're a nice guy and you think you wouldn't harm anybody. And therefore you can't understand why this woman that you're on a date with would be trying to do things to test to see if you're going to bring harm her way, or why she's purposely agitating you to make sure that you're not going to go off the handle when you get upset. And it's because in women's history, that happens. Like if you were to just ask almost every female person in your family about a time that they got touched inappropriately or abused or manhandled or were in a situation where they had to darn near scream or jump out of a window because a guy was coming on too hard and it was almost about to do you know what to them. Like too many women have those stories to where them testing you to see if you're going to do the same thing is totally warranted. All right. Now, what I left as my comment to him was, I said, for one, I'm definitely not a feminist. I feel too much of what they're about is toxic in general. More to the point, though, the reality is both sexes are going to test the other, and they need to. I said that men need to be testing women to make sure that they're not just being used for their money or various other things. I said, and women need to test for safety to make sure that a guy is not going to be emotionally unstable and bring potential physical harm amongst many other things. As I said in the video, the pull-away test isn't so much a purposeful test that a woman is usually trying to give on purpose, but rather it is a test to test a man. It's a test a man is basically putting himself through to see how patient he can be when her communication isn't as hot and heavy as it was when they started dating, which is bound to happen in a healthy, progressing relationship where trust has been established. I talked about that extensively in last week's live about the whole, like, it's natural for her texting amount to start to wean off a bit as she starts to trust you and like you more, right? But more to the point is that, like I said, a lot of these tests aren't even tests that are being purposely put forward. What happens is a guy will notice that a woman is suddenly saying or doing something that seems a bit off. He'll get in his feelings about it and come to her and try to be like, hey, this thing's bugging me, or why'd you do this thing, or whatever. And at that point, the woman's like, huh, interesting. And so what's happening is basically she's now grading a test that she wasn't even trying to give. Basically, you're the one that's popping the surprise test on her. Like, for example, let's say she's been texting you every single day, and then one day she gets busy at work, she loses her phone, whatever, and she doesn't text you, right? So then you decided to send her a text, and she doesn't respond to it. So you send her like 5 or 6 texts in a row. Hey, where are you? Why aren't you answering? Are you with another dude? Tell me what's going on. What did I do to hurt you? Oh my God. She picks up her phone like 5 hours later, looks at it, and she sees all these messages. And now a test that she wasn't even trying to give you is now a test that she has to grade because you did it, because you sent all these needy, desperate texts where now she's like, huh, interesting. He's going a little off. I thought he was more of a calm, cool, collected dude, but these long paragraph texts that he sent me about where am I and did I hurt him, this and that, he seems like a really anxious, needy guy. I wonder what happens if I just wait an extra day and don't text him, just to see what happens. And that's how the test begins, because you did something. Now, that's not all the time, and I've expressed before, there are women out there that will purposely try to test. I talked about on the show before about how my mom, when she was dating my dad, he was an even-keel guy. He was a nice dude, never started any fights, and she needed to know how he was going to fight. So she said that one day she went to go see him play basketball with his buddies, and she was just being all extra annoying and saying things and yelling things and trying to interrupt. And so he waited until the game was over and all his buddies left, and he turned to her and was like, hey, don't do that crap anymore. That was really annoying. And her response in her head was like, okay. So I made him a little mad. He got a little frustrated, a little bit angry. He came over to me and made his boundaries known, like, hey, don't do this to my friends. Cool, I can work with that. So she needed to put him through that test for her to be able to see what level of mad she was going to get, because inevitably there's going to be disagreements in a relationship. And there are too many women that have been in situations where they try to put forth a disagreement or a different opinion about something, and the guy's just all, how dare you? Oh my God. So you got to be aware. Men don't typically go through that like women do. And so, like I said, that was an example of like a test that my mom did that allowed her to see that this guy is going to be able to be reasonable should we have disagreements, and I don't have to worry about a threat to my safety. Now, as I said earlier, most guys don't deal with that. So we're not going to even be in our head thinking about, okay, I got to test this woman to see if she's going to argue with me and then she's going to like beat me up and this and that, because we don't have that fear of a woman being physical with us. But that does not mean that you as a guy should not be testing for that. Because I'll tell you now, I've been in situations where I'm thinking I have a reasonably good level of being able to sit with somebody and discuss things. If there's a disagreement, if I'm making them angry, I can sit down and talk about it rationally. And so I have found there are a wide variety of women out there that cannot do the same. They want to overtalk. They want to interrupt you. They want to tell you that it's all your fault. They want to express to you that the thing that you did last week is really the issue, not the thing that she did this week. And you got to suss that stuff out, because early on in the dating game, these are examples of like things that are going to pop up later. And I think he gets to later talking about how, well, I'll get to the later part of this in a minute. But anyway, so he then, I continue saying, I said, it's also important for men to know that their behavior can cause women to pull away. This isn't to say women don't ever pull away without reason, but a fair amount of them pull away when the man that they're with is making them feel that ick factor. And in my line of work, I come across too many dudes who are unaware that many of the things that they're doing and or saying would give many women this ick factor. Now, this goes back to the video I just showed, where I'm talking about, it's the better that you're able to understand women and the things that they've been through and the various types of guys that they've dated that were toxic. It'll start to give you a bit more empathy. For example, when she doesn't text you like one day, you might just be like, okay, well, instead of being like, I'm mad she didn't text, you'll sit there and think, okay, let's be rational. I've texted her 5 days in a row. Could she possibly need time to spend with her girlfriends? Could she possibly need time to spend with her friends or to catch up on work or to go to a happy hour with her workmates? Like, I'm realistically a new guy in her life. And also, is all this texting possibly making her feel like I'm wanting her too soon, or I'm already trying to lock her down, or that I'm needy? Could my behavior be resulting in why she's not trying to contact me all of a sudden right now? And if that's the case, would me pulling back a bit be a better option for her in this moment? And honestly, a lot of times the answer is yes, because I've been on the friend side of things. Like, I've had female friends that I've seen date who I've seen express early on, this guy's so great. I met him at this party, I met him online, and we're constantly texting back and forth, and it's so great. And then fast forward 2 weeks later, where I'm hearing them say things like, I had to go to work one day and I couldn't get back to him. When I got back to my phone, I had 5 messages saying, where are you? What's going on? Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, I've been the guy from this, been able to see that from women, to where I start to see like, oh, like it does get annoying. I've seen Reddit messages where women are saying, hey, so I like this guy a lot, but I really want to be able to tell him. I got a comment from a lady this week where I did a show about why you shouldn't say I love you so much. And a woman commented basically saying, yeah, I'm trying to get my husband right now to understand that I love him to death, but I don't need to hear him say I love you all the time. And guys can't understand that. Guys can't understand why the over excessiveness of the types of things we're saying to them and the time we're trying to spend with them could result in them having burnout. Like, a woman that loves you doesn't need to hear I love you every single day, because it starts to get annoying. It starts to have less meaning, and it starts to make them think, why is he saying it all the time? Are they needy? Are they anxious? And guess what? Women don't like guys that are displaying needy, anxious behavior, because it puts them in a state of, I don't know what this guy's going to do if I make the wrong move. Is he going to try to hit me? Is he going to try to cry? Like, I don't know what's going on, but the fact that I can't predict his reaction now is making me fearful and honestly a bit annoyed with the person that I'm with. So again, as you come to understand these things, you're going to find that, A, you'll do less work in terms of trying to attract women, but also you'll find that women are going to be more appreciative that you're able to give them that space. And you'll find that when you give them that space, they're going to be more apt to come to you more often as a result. So anyway, then this guy said, I can appreciate the valid points you raised with safety and financial. This, I believe, is something we can get an idea of without having to test the other. It really throws one off when one is caring, generous, responsive, and loving, but then tested on the negative side. Most guys are of the thinking that if there is nothing to upset them, then there's no need to be upset. But here's the thing, guy, is that in the dating phase of things, both the man and the woman, i.e. you, or you were the man, are trying to put their best foot forward. We're trying to dress the nicest we can, smell the best we can, go to ideally the best restaurants or places we feel are going to be the best to give the best impression of us. We're trying to clean up our place to be absolutely spotless and iron all of our wrinkles and clothes on dates. And all that's great, but it's the honeymoon phase. It's fantasy. And women know that what you're presenting to them is not going to be the day-to-day in a real relationship. So the problem arises when in this honeymoon phase, you're not trying to do anything to start a fight. You might think that's bad, right? But that also means you're not necessarily trying to say opinions that are different from hers. You're not trying to take her some new places because you think that she might not like them and you want to make sure she likes every place you take her to. And so women are like, this isn't real. And I need to know the real him because I need to know if the real him is going to be as safe of a version to be around as the version I'm getting now. So women will test this early on in pretty conventional ways, but ways that are like easy in the beginning, but it'll give them a lot of read on the kind of guy you are. Perfect example, right? You go on a date with a girl and she brings up a particular subject of some kind, right? You express an opinion about that subject, and then she comes back with the opposite opinion. Now, you could be thinking, this chick's crazy. Why does she have a different opinion? But why is she doing that? She's doing that to test to see if you're going to stick to the opinion you just gave, or if you're going to like try to switch over to what her opinion now is. Now, why is she doing that? Because she's been on a lot of dates where guys are trying to people please her and agree to everything. And women do not find that to be safe. Why? Because there might come a time in your guys' life, like say you guys have kids at some point, right? And you are trying to decide which part of town to move in. And she says, I think we should move to this part of town. And you know it's the most dangerous part of town. If you don't have a different opinion and say, I think this place over here is going to be better and here's why, you have now put you and your family in danger because you wanted to agree with her. So she's going to test that early on in the dating phase. Another perfect example, right? You walk a girl to a car, she walks over to the passenger side, and she stands there momentarily for 5 seconds. And you're looking at her like, thinking to your head like, why doesn't she just open her door? So you just open your door, get in the car, you hear a faint sigh, she opens the door, gets into the car, you guys drive off. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal to you, but guess what? She was looking to see if you would come over to her side and open her door. Why? Why was she doing that? Why was she testing you that way? Because she's looking early on to see at what level you're going to be willing to actually take care of her and look after her. And opening a door for a woman, as basic as it sounds, is an easy way for her to test that. And I've been with so many women who on that first date or second date, I go to the door, I open it for them, and they're shocked. They're like, oh my God, no guy has ever done this for me. And I'm like, no guy? And she's like, no guy. And she's not with those guys because they were not considerate and kind. And here's the thing, guy, they're testing these things early on because they know that if they fall for you and they fall hard, they're going to give you the world. They're going to be willing to move for you and have your babies and get you gifts just because they're thinking about you and build up your household to be a livable space. And all she's trying to see is if you're going to open the door for her, which will indicate to her that you're going to be on the same thought of trying to take care of her, and you can't do it. So these are things that, again, women can't just ask you, hey, are you going to take care of me if we get into a relationship? But she can see through these little tests and how you react to them if that's going to be a true thing. And so guys are thinking, if she just told me what she wanted, or she just told me she was testing me, I can just tell her that I'll be that kind of guy. Realistically, guy, if you're not already doing it, you're probably not going to be that guy. And women know this. So women are going to test these things early to see if that's true. Because yeah, you could be kind, caring, and generous, but are you the kind of kind, caring, and generous that she needs to be in a relationship? And honestly, you may not be. So she's got to test that. Anyway, he says, the whole test you're referring to is a distrust in character and pushing for the negative. These things should be dealt with when they arise. Well, again, she doesn't know when they're going to arise. And you could go, guy, you could go a whole 6 months to a year and not have any signals that indicate you're going to be a guy that yells or a guy that argues or a guy that's physically violent to her. But you're telling her she should just wait for a year or so to see if that stuff pops up. And I got news for you. Most women have done that and had dire consequences. So they're not trying to do that. They're trying to get as many red flags out of the way as possible early on in the dating process. Now, to be fair to women, most of the tests that they're going to throw at you early on aren't even going to be that intense, but that's because women are reading passive language. They're going to give you passive tests because they're figuring, again, I told you before, women typically read 3 times more into things than we're anticipating. So again, back to the door example. If she stands at her door for 5 seconds and you don't open the car door, it's not a big thing, except it's telling her everything she needs to know about who you're putting first. All right. So yeah, it's totally fair for them to do that because, again, these things aren't going to just arise out of nowhere. And she doesn't want to have to wait 2 years or 3 years down the line when she could be trying to test for things that are going to be red flags now. And also to the point, I know he's saying that, the whole test is a distrusting character. Yeah, women have a lot of reason to distrust men. Like, I know men don't want to hear that, and especially good guy introverts that are watching this show. But the reality is that women as a whole, from the moment that they're 12 years old, are getting oogled by guys, catcalled, being told inappropriate things by guys that aren't aware they're being inappropriate. And they've been on plenty of dates where guys have tried to touch them inappropriately or try to physically harm them or physically take things from them in the belt region that they don't want to give away yet. Like, that stuff happens. And again, most dudes don't live in that world. So we're thinking, why should she distrust me? I'm a nice guy, and she has seen nice guys that look just like you that said the same thing that harm them. And this goes back to, this is why it's important for you as a guy to have an understanding of the kind of dating lives and the kind of dealings with men that women have had. Because if you understand that, you won't be so butthurt if she wants to wait until date 3 or 4 to hook up with you, or she says, hey, I'm not going back to your place right now at the end of a first date. Because you're thinking, she just doesn't trust me. No, she doesn't trust you. She just met you. But she's had other guys in her past that she now has a better outlook as a result about how men can be. And she needs time to see that you're not going to be that kind of guy. So you have to give women that level of grace and understand that when these tests come, or when they say they're not going to do certain things, it's not anything personal. Like the guy said in the video, it's nothing personal. It's just that in the beginning, she doesn't know you, you're a stranger, and she has to do what's best for her and her safety to make sure that she makes it home tonight to be able to tell her girlfriends about the great time she had with you, Continuing, he says, I can tell you now, and I'm sure you'll agree, this behavior will no doubt make any guy feel untrusted and second-guessed. Well, you know what? I agree. I agree that if a woman's quote unquote testing you or saying she doesn't trust you right away, that it's gonna hurt your feelings. Again, to her, it's nothing personal. She doesn't know you enough to be trying to purposely hurt your feelings. In the beginning, she's solely looking out for herself to make sure that she's safe. Now, you as a guy, again, if you have an understanding of that, then your feelings will not be hurt if she doesn't trust you right away. I remember I dated a girl years ago. We went on like 2 dates. On the second date, we got back to her place, and she was like, hey, so I'm going to invite you up, but I just want you to know that I'm not trying to rush into getting physical, so we're not going up there to do that. I was like, okay, fine. Because again, I tell people, I was a virgin until I was 23. I can outweight you. So that's totally fine. So went up to her place. I think I kissed her a little bit. I went home. Next time I saw her, went to her place. We're kissing a little bit, and I'm trying to feel her in some places, moves my hand away. Now, if I had been a guy that was not knowledgeable, I would have been all butthurt. Why won't you let me put my hand in certain places? You don't trust me. Oh my God. Instead, I was just like, eventually we'll get there. I'm just cool to hang out. It is what it is. And so each time I would go to her place, we would get closer and closer to doing some stuff until we finally did some stuff. But because I was very empathetic to what women go through and how they date, and that sometimes they need a little bit more time than I do, I was able to legitimately go on dates, have a good time with her, and wait for the moment where she felt comfortable enough to make that happen. There's another girl I dated. took her on a first date, and at the end of the first date, we kissed. I heard later from people that we were connected with that she felt kind of awkward about that because she didn't really do the whole first date kiss thing. And my reaction was like, okay, cool. Hey, as long as I know, I'm totally fine about that. I can wait until she's more comfortable. We went on like 2 more dates. And on that third date, it was like all systems go. She was all like over me trying to kiss me and stuff like that. But that's because I was respectful and I didn't like lash out and say, you should be able to kiss me and trust me. How could you not? We had such a good time on this first date. How dare you? And so, but that's an example of like, so she said a thing about like, she felt odd doing the whole first date kiss thing. That's a test. It's not a test she's purposely trying to do, but it is saying, hey, so for right now, I have this boundary. let's see if this guy's going to respect it. And all I got to do is respect the boundary. Like dudes are getting butthurt that women are testing them. Most of these tests are easy as shiznit to pass. Most of the tests involve you doing this. Are you ready for this? In order to pass most women's tests, all you got to do is be patient. So if she says you're texting her too much, be patient, scale back. If she says, hey, we're moving a little too fast in the physical realm, be patient, hold back. If you're patient and hold back, they feel like you're respecting them and that you're giving them the choice to want to go further faster. And you'll find that if you're more patient, lo and behold, they do that. Like, that's really, men get hurt and butthurt about these tests because we can't wait. We want what we want now. How dare we not get it? We want to have her contact us back right away and she's not, and how dare she? And we want to hook up because it's been 2 dates and she's not, and it's all because we're trying to rush stuff. If we would just be a bit more patient, we would find women of their own accord would be rushing back to us. And as I always say, if she's chasing you, she can't be replacing you. And that's what you want. You want to give a woman just enough patience to be able to want to come to you with ideas and suggestions of dates, or coming to you and saying, hey, you come to my place tonight for Netflix and chill. Like, these are the kind of things that men aren't realizing they're losing out on because they don't want to take her test. And how dare they? And these tests, again, are easy as crap to pass. Like, dudes, you're complaining about nothing because women aren't trying to make these tests hard. They want you to pass these tests so they can feel more trust in you. And you want to argue with that? Get the freak out of here. Anyway, so then he says, the next thought is there must be a comparison that's in communication with your partner to second guess the person we put forward. What you're describing is people putting forward an inflated version of themselves when dating until life takes hold and stuff gets real. I wouldn't stay with someone like that either. Well, no, what I'm saying is realistically, on those first few months of dating, both you and the girl are putting your best foot forward because you guys want to have, you guys are trying to basically build like the base knowledge and thought that you want the other person to have about you. So that way, if anything goes wrong later on, they can always think back to like, but overall, this is a cool guy. And so I'm going to still rock with him, even if we're having a momentary like argument here or disagreement, or, you know, things a little rocky right now. But I know based on that first 3 months with him that he really is a great guy. And so what most dudes are doing is, you got to understand, women need that 3 months to solidify their feelings, in part because it's also solidifying how they're going to best have the impression of you in their head. And when you try to rush that by getting her in a relationship after 2 weeks, you're not allowing her to have a solid enough foundation or idea about who you are to be able to go back to that version consistently. So this is why you as a guy need to be more patient, but also recognize that during those 3 months, there's going to be a few tests here and there that are thrown out that, again, she wants you to pass, but that when you pass those tests, it's going to put in her head, oh, he knows how to have a cordial disagreement, or, oh, he knows how to treat me right in this certain way. Like, you need to let her build that up. And a lot of you guys are trying to rush through it and it's not happening. And then you're wondering why you're losing out on women that would have legitimately been good for you had you been a bit more patient in the first place, and had you not been so butthurt for her trying to give you all these tests. All right. Continuing on, he says, the answer to these so-called tests come in general life without the added extra push. The way we speak to people and deal with daily life is the norm. It isn't having to deal with people's mind games and tests. So that's the point that I said I would do a whole show about this. And then he wrote back. He wrote some more stuff. So real quick, I'm going to get a quick drink because I am like thirsty as heck. All right. Got this really good lemonade. Delicious. Anyway, so he said, first, I apologize for the feminist remark. Thank you. I'm a firm believer in the person, not the gender, and equal conversation applies. May I also add that neither misogyny or feminism is a productive view for the evolution of humankind when it causes a divide between the most simplest of biology, being man and woman, and firmly believe we are all responsible for our own thoughts, doings, and outcomes. Clear thinking and way of life describe a different person than one that's caught up with games and tests. Well, I will say this, is that again, this goes back, I keep going back to, if you understand the things that women go through, you will understand why they test. Of the two sexes, and I know women might want to hear this, of the two sexes, physically, we're stronger. So that means that there's a higher probability that if things go haywire in a relationship, we are going to have the upper hand in terms of like the level of physical harm we can bring to them. So you cannot fault the sex that is weaker structurally from trying to test. It'd be like saying, well, we don't want to test this building we're going to build because we're just going to trust that when you put it up, it's going to be totally fine. Like, no, this is why you test things like beams and cement and things that are going to, what material is going to be best to make sure this building has a solid foundation, because we don't want to build this whole building and then have it crash down because we did a bad job. Much in the same way that a woman doesn't want to get into a relationship and then realize that, oh, this relationship actually sucks because this guy is abusive and name calling and all this other stuff and unstable and doesn't have emotional intelligence. And now I got to crumble down all this stuff after we built a life together and we have kids and our families are merged. And now I'm realizing this dude is not what it's cracked up to be. She doesn't want to have to do that 3 years, 4 years into a relationship. So given the option, she's going to test for that stuff now, because if it goes away now, it's going to suck, but it's going to suck a lot later if she has to do it later on because she didn't test early on. So again, this goes back to, as a guy, it's going to feel weird. You're not going to understand it. Like I just learned, just like much in the same way, like women oftentimes can't understand certain things about men. Like I know across the board, women can't understand that men have a nothing box. We can just sit there and think about nothing. We can try to explain that to them until the cows come home. They do not have a nothing box. They can only get it based on us saying it enough times, but they'll never know what that actually feels like. So us as guys, we're never going to have the understanding or a feeling tone of why does a woman need to test us? Like, wait, but women don't trust us sometimes, but like, I'm a good guy. But okay, so even if I'm a good guy, she's thinking that there's still a part of me that could bring her harm still. Like, I don't understand. You may never understand it, and that's totally fine. But you need to be able to listen to them and take what they're saying as truth and realize, you know what? If enough women across the board are saying, look, too many guys text us too much, call us too much, touch us too much, insult us too much, or try to put us down too much, or, try to physically intimidate us too much, then you know what? I just got to go with what they're saying. Because if it was one woman, totally get it. If it's like message boards of women, that is where you got to start considering maybe her testing me is not that bad. Because I got news for you. Even the most even-keeled girl of all time is going to test you in some way. And that can either be she's purposely testing you, or you're testing yourself by her not reacting in a way that you anticipated you think she should act because she's not a guy. And I said before, if you as a guy are looking to get a feminine woman, recognize that feminine women are going to act in feminine women ways. And one of those ways are passively testing you at times just to make sure. Think of it like a tune-up. Like, I have a car in California. After your car's 8 years old, you got to get a smog check like every 2 years, right? So I could be annoyed by that. Or you just be like, you know what? California wants to make sure that my car is still safe. So every so often, I got to do a smog test. It's a little annoying, but you know what? I pay a couple bills for it. It gets done, and we're back on the road again, right? So whether you're dating a woman, whether you're in a relationship with a woman, every so often, a test is going to pop up just as like a tune-up, just to make sure you're still on your toes, just to make sure that she still has the guy that she thought she got in the beginning. And if you think that a woman's not going to do that, I got news for you, guy. You are never going to date women, because you're going to be annoyed all the time by women that are doing this, which is all of them. All of them test. Even the ones you think are going to test you, even your mama, even your aunties, even your cousins are going to test you for your masculine strength, for your ability to think on your toes like a guy, to make sure you're not going to hurt them in certain ways. You should be happy that these women want to test you, because it means that they think that you actually have the ability to pass the test in the first place. Anyway, so then he says, man, ask this question. In a situation where a man needs to, quote, protect his partner and has to defend her in a physical way, or needs to get angry at the offender to protect, does this come across as a concern to women that our rage only at the right moment is reason for doubt, or is it justified and praised? It's displaying the same character without the test and at a very appropriate time. Does this make us a dangerous character? I think not, because the protection is over the one that is loved. A test pushes for unnecessary confusion and causes one to keep their distance. There's others out there who will respect quality time with the partner without all the kerfuffle. I like that he used the word kerfuffle. Oh, I'm sticking on a lemon. One second here. Things like a grapefruit. So what he's basically saying is like if a guy comes up and like is potentially going to be physically harmful to your girl, wouldn't that then be the moment at which she could test what kind of rage you have versus trying to instill a test of some kind in the moment that's going to cause her to see that rage without an actual situation popping up? And this goes back to the example I said about my mom, where she purposely made my dad embarrass my dad in front of his friends and got to see that his reaction was like, hey, don't do that crap. That's annoying. Stop it. And so again, this goes back to like, A, for one, do you really want the test for that to be when some bulky guy is coming up to you and threatening both you and your girl to test to see if you're physically strong? Like, you could wait for that moment to happen, but I know you don't want that to happen, and she definitely doesn't want that to happen, right? So the thing is this, is that women have had the experience of they're just living their life, trying to be cool with their partner, and their partner out of nowhere gets violent with them. Or their partner wasn't a drunk when they first started dating, but then as the months and years went on, he started drinking more alcohol or started doing more drugs, and now is coming home drunk and hurtful, right? And so again, enough women have experienced these things where they're trying to look for ways they can test early on to see if you're going to abuse them. Now, obviously, a lot of women go for guys that have muscles or that are taller in structure because they're anticipating that should harm come their way, that you as the guy are going to be able to handle it. And not even necessarily like you have to fight another person mode, but they like the idea that you could possibly maybe do that because you're going to be able to do it a lot better than they could, you know? But to that point, women still got to test out to make sure that it's a weird balance of like, you have to test to see that you have the ability to do that kind of thing, but not do it to where you're going to harm them. And so this is why, honestly, her putting out tests that make you have to stand up to her are such a big deal, because her thought's going to be, if you're not able to stand up to her, then there's no way you can stand up to bigger threats, and she's out. So you might have a girl that, like, for example, comes to you one day and says, hey, we talked about going on this one date, and then you said you had to cancel it for work. How could you hurt my feelings, and I'm tired of this, blah, 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 and you need to respect me more, this and that. And that's an unreasonable argument. So when she's being unreasonable in that moment, what she's looking for is to see, how are you going to handle it? Are you going to correct her? And if so, are you going to correct her in a way that is firm but respectful, but lets it get across that you don't take that disrespect from her? So in that example, let's say you canceled this date because you had to work and I don't appreciate that. And I blah, 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 blah. You coming in and being like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, babe. I didn't mean to do blah, blah, blah. And I didn't do my princess. I'll be better next time. Well, now she knows that you're weak. And now she doesn't feel like you could stand up to her, therefore you can't stand up to somebody else, and it's going to actually turn her off more. Now, the other extreme is she says, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, shut up, you B word. How dare you? I'll work as long as I want to. Yes, yeah, trampy so-and-so. Like, that's also not a good reaction, because now she's like, oh, this dude's violent as heck and is like emotionally unstable. I can't be around this either. So the even keel would be like, babe, look, I got to work. I got to make money for us. Obviously, I want to take you out sometime. We can do that at a different time if that's okay with you. But, you're not going to come stepping to me in this disrespectful way. If you feel that you are hurt by the fact I had to cancel our date, then hey, you can totally express that, but you're not going to do it in the way you just did it. Understood? Now, that is a way to be like, she'll be like, okay, shoot, he's setting boundaries on how this conversation goes, but he's still respecting me. And he's saying, I have a right to feel the way I do. So he's not discounting my feelings, but he's saying it in a stern tone. And honestly, it's kind of turning me on. Like, you'd be surprised, like, women occasionally want to be talked to in a stern tone because it projects to them that you have masculine quality, and that can actually be a turn on to them. All right. But to the point, you doing it in that way, it lets her test out that you are a guy that's going to stand up to her. And therefore, you're most likely going to stand up to other threats, other men, other, things that might come in her life. And she knows that she can come to you if she needs that to happen. All right. So that's how a woman's going to typically, that's just one example of how a woman will at times test for like that kind of thing, in terms of being able to see if you're the kind of guy that can stand up for her in other situations. All right. But again, to deny her that test, to be mad at her for trying to pull that kind of test off, again, she needs to test this, because she's going to try to test it in lighter situations, because she doesn't want to get to the big test and then realize that you're going to fail it, And again, guys don't have that worry, but women do. So you can't be mad at them for trying to test those kind of things. He also says the other thought is this: if a lady is insecure about dating and needs to push test, then how many times has this lady been in bad situations? Is her taste in men been good up until this point, or has she got a high body count because she has fallen for the same 1% of reject men that are in the game to play the game that a majority of other women fall for too? That shows a distrust in her own judgment and character. Well, that's kind of unfair because the reality is that most men that are good with women, or even women that are just okay with women, they can put on a good front for the first 90 days. Like, let's say a woman, for example, is like, oh, let's say they have a rule of like, I don't want to hook up with a guy for the first 3 months. Guys can come in there and be like, but I'm going to get it, right? So I wait 3 months, fine. So for 3 months, they're showing her the best possible side of her and of himself. And, he's being respectful, taking her on dates, only kissing her, like holding her hand places, being there for her if she needs to get groceries or whatever, like being that dude. And then 3 months comes, I feel so secure about this guy. Okay, I hook up with him. And then the hookup happens, and then dude is gone. She thought she had good judgment. She couldn't tell this dude wasn't a nice guy because he was doing the front the whole time. So you are acting like men are always good guys and always are doing the right thing and never put on a front. And they do. And women have fallen for this to where they realize, you know what? I got to test for things a little early on because, maybe she was a woman that was like, I'll give all guys the benefit of doubt. All guys are emotionally stable. And then she gets with a guy a year and a half in, he gets emotionally unstable, and then kind of find out he was just hiding it for a year because he wanted to make sure he was fully in there before he started showing that side of himself. That happens. So you can't be mad at women that want to then test this stuff because, yeah, most women, by the time if you're in your like 20s or 30s, right? By the time a woman's in her, say like 25, most women across the board have had a fair number of guys hitting on them and trying to date them, and they've been in relationships, and they've been in relationships that are toxic, that are abusive, that the guy, and most women, they didn't go in seeking that guy thinking, I'm going to get with this abusive guy. That stuff typically either popped up or early on, she wasn't testing guys and she fell into some really bad situations to where she realized, oh, okay, I need to like start testing these guys because this guy I thought was nice wasn't. This guy that was a bad dude was actually a worse dude. Or this guy that was a good dude, I didn't want to get with him. Turns out he was a great guy, but I didn't put any test out to be able to test for that. So that's on me. So women are doing their work. And so when a woman's coming to you for this kind of stuff, like you can't be mad at them for like pushing tests. Like a lot of these things end up being subconscious because they just pick up things over time. Okay, next time, test guys for this thing. Okay, next time, ask these questions. Okay, next time. So when she gets to you, she might have like 10 things she picked up along the way that she's now got to test for because all these other situations showed her, oh crap, I need to make sure I look for these things before I just outright say yes to a dude. All right. And again, we could say these women picked badly in the past. Dude, guys pick bad in the past also. The fact that we're not learning from that and putting our own test together to test women on, if you choose not to do that, that's on you. But you should totally be doing that. Like I said, I think both men and women need to have tests designed to make sure that they're not being used or abused for various things or used for their money or that they're secretly dating somebody that has bipolar or some other kind of thing that actually makes them like emotionally unstable. Like dudes need to do a better job across the board of vetting women in general. And so you can't be mad at them for doing that. And you need to jump on the train to do that. And I know you might think, but I don't want to test her because I don't want to be a fake person. I'm not telling you to be fake. I'm telling you to realistically live your life the way you are, but like a way you could, for example, a way you could test as a guy, right? Again, if a woman says some stuff and you disagree with it, put your real opinion out there and see how she reacts to it. Because I found that for some women, if you give them your honest take on certain subjects or topics or whatever like that, they'll go haywire. How could you think that thing? Why don't you agree with me? But don't you think this, blah, 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 blah? And I found that long-term, those kind of women are hard to deal with. But if I didn't do things early on that tested for that quality, then I would end up with the kind of woman that would do that. So test or viable things for you to do in a way that's not going to be you acting different from how you are, but you do want to be looking at how women react when you say things, when you do certain things, positively, of course, and really look at, are these things you could deal with? If you're a guy that doesn't want to have kids and you say to a woman, hey, so I don't want to have kids, how do you feel about that? And she's like, oh, I totally don't want kids either. If then you find out down the line she actually wants them, that means you didn't test on early enough to see if this was her actual opinion or if she had actually thought about what that would mean. And you need to do further tests to see if who you're with across the table here is somebody that you're going to actually gel with in a long-term situation. Because you're going to find if you start doing the proper testing, a lot of these women that you end up down the line breaking up with or dumping are women you would have never gotten with had you done the proper test in the beginning and had you actually saw those red flags, realized there are red flags and gotten out. And I'm a tester case here. I have definitely wasted my time with women that early on I saw signs of things, but I didn't test for those things. And I ended up having to get out of those situations later, realizing on date 1 or 2, yeah, she was kind of showing these things and I should have just been out. I don't want you wasting that time. Like I don't. So you can waste time and not do tests and then find out down the line that, oh, you should have tested for some stuff. Or you can put some lightweight test early on that will give you a better read on the woman that you're currently with. It's up to you. Then he says, the last thing he says, most guys commit because they hate the game and just want realism, support, comfort, nurturing, and love. Well, that's not true. Guys also want relationships because they want validation. Like realistically, being in a relationship gives us status. It makes us feel as though we are wanted. It allows us to hook up with a woman, which, hormonally we want. Like, I think men have bought into this idea that we can only want to be with a woman because of these flowery things. Oh, I just want to have comfort and support and be able to be there for a woman. You want validation and you want to hook up. And there's nothing wrong with that. All right. Continuing, he says, throw in a bit of inspiration in there and you have the recipe for a decent, long-lasting relationship. No test needed, just stepping up to the plate when it's called for. The other thought is this: am I being tested to see how far I can be pushed before I snap? This is never a great way to deal with any person, no matter the gender. Oh, really? So you find out at the end of a relationship that the girl you were with had bipolar disorder this entire time, but you didn't want to test for that early on. You find out this girl actually had like a secret family she wasn't telling you about. You want to ask better questions early on. This girl, you find out all the things she was doing in the beginning, she actually doesn't want to do those things. Like she was giving you the best hookup and doing that move in the bedroom you really, really liked early on. Kind of find out she doesn't like it at all. But you didn't ask her early on before you got into bed with her what kind of things she was into or what really got her rocks going to be able to see that maybe you guys aren't going to be on the same plane. Like you didn't want to ask any of those kind of questions. In terms of testing, you didn't want to like figure out early on that maybe some of the things that she's talking about in terms of past relationships going bad could have been her. Like I dated women that said things like, oh man, like all the guys I dated in the past, they abused me and blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. But then fast forward to we're dating and she's texting all the time, calling all the time, wondering where I'm at when I'm not answering right away, trying to see me every single day because she doesn't quote unquote trust me like that. And then I break up with her. Oh, you're just like all the other guys. Oh, so I didn't think to test that early on. So I should just assume that we'll just be naturally ourselves and things will be totally fine. This is what I'm talking about. That ultimately both sexes need to be testing for their own safety and security, but also to see if the way that which the person is presenting themselves is actually the way they're going to be in a long-term situation. And men get butthurt that women do that, but women need to be doing that because, again, their safety is at risk long-term, but also, guy, your emotional health, your mental state, if you guys have kids together and then things go haywire, there are a lot of bad things that can happen later down the line because you decided you didn't want to test a woman earlier because you're going to just trust all women. Like anyone you date, she's going to be totally there for the right reasons and women would never do you wrong and they're never going to be the kind of people that would ever hurt you or do things unintentionally. And I'm telling you, guy, they exist. So all this, in an ideal world, you're right. Neither sex would have to test the other sex for anything because we'd all be able to present ourselves as we actually are and stay that way. But the reality is in the dating world, in the first 3 months of dating, most people are putting forth their best representative. I can't say it's not you. I'm saying you're putting forth your best representative and she is also putting forth her best representative. And you have to go in knowing that as great as this representative is, there's going to be a point in time where she's not going to be able to always be the perfect representative. And you got to suss out what that looks like when it happens. If you don't, then you are a guy that is falling for all this flowery, lovey-dovey, oh my God, love is the greatest thing and love can make everything right like rain. And you're not looking at, she is a human just like you. She has flaws. You need to know if you can gel with those flaws. You need to know if some of the things she's saying about you or the ways that she's acting are conductive and conducive to a relationship. You need to see if she has any kind of social media she's not telling you about, that she's posting up all kinds of pictures or talking about you behind your back in a negative way. Like these are just small examples of things women could be doing that you're not aware of. And if you're not testing for them, then you're going to be basically going into a relationship with blinders on. And I got news for you guys. You can ask guys who are divorcing women right now what they wish they would have done early on. And I guarantee you, a lot of them would have said either I would have tested for these various things, or I would have paid better attention to red flags and gotten out while the getting was good. So again, don't fault women for trying to put forth tests to you. And also, guy, you should be doing tests. It is not a negative thing. And I have found, honestly, most women are appalled that dudes aren't testing them more. Like, women will be like, because again, women are vetting us and trying to see things about us. They'll be shocked that a guy didn't stand up to them, or that a guy didn't try to ask them about certain things about their past, or all these other things. Like, you need to be doing your own tests. Women are not going to be mad. They're already doing it as part of their process. They've done your expected. We're the ones that are like, but I want to be my authentic self, and I want to this, and that. Well, guy, you can be your best representative in the early dating process, but still be saying and or doing things that are going to test to see where she's at mentally. Because I'm going to tell you, I have known people, for example, that have gotten into relationships with people that have mental situations going on, or that have, horrible family past. And I'm telling you, guys, that stuff affects him. That stuff will affect you if you have not sussed it out. So do your due diligence. That's all I'm saying. So hopefully, guys, this answers the extensive number of comments and stuff that you said in your thing. I really appreciate you for leaving all this, because it made for me to put together a good show. I got a comment in the chat. And it's Dear Juan. He says, the majority of people are blind to common sense when it comes to crap like this. Well, it's true. And the thing is, like, and I think over time too, I think guys, especially, because look, as in society in general, and I know most women will probably fight me on this, but like, most of society is set up and designed to protect women. Like, laws are put in place, buildings are made, things are put together to see to it that women are protected and taken care of. And so as a result of that, part of that also means that it's very hard for men in particular to want to see flaws in women and to want to suss out things that they could be doing negative, because to do that means A, they're losing out on a prospect, and guys already don't have enough prospects as it is. And also it means having to admit that women do bad things, but women can't do bad things because we want women to do good things because they have nice bodies and they smell good. And how dare we try to call a woman out for possibly having things about her that need to be tested because they're actually like bad things. And I just, I grew up around women. I got to see a wide variety of the way in which women can act and how they think about things. And I've got to talk to my female friends about things that they're hiding from men. I'll give you a real story, right? I was an Uber driver, and I picked up this woman one night from this house. It was like 3 a.m. I picked her from this house. I can't quite see the figure in the door, but she's waving to the guy, or waving to whoever it was, comes into my car. I'm driving this woman home. This woman picks up the phone. Hello? Oh, hey, sweetie. Oh, yeah, I was out with the girls, and, I got a little bit drunk and I didn't want to drive home right away. So, one of my girlfriends, I got to go to her house. I got to rest a little bit. And so now I'm good. So I'm catching a car home now. I love you. I picked her up from another dude's house that she was banging to take her home to her husband. And these are the things that guys don't want to see. These are the things that guys don't want to admit actually happens. But women do bad behavior all the time. And part of the reason they're able to get away with it is because guys don't want to see it. And if they do see it, they don't want to call them out on it or believe that it's a one-time thing and it would never happen again, because as the guy, I'm so great. Why would a woman want to do this to me more than once? And that stuff happens. So it's not about saying all women are bad, because I don't believe that. I believe that, just like there's good men, there are good women out there, but that doesn't mean that the woman across from you is a good woman, because until you spent time with her, until you've properly vetted her, you're giving her the benefit of the doubt. And you should not do that. You should go on dates being like, I'm going to be the best guy I can be, and I'm going to assume that she's a great woman, but I'm also going to test out to make sure that the great woman that I think I have in front of me is in fact a great woman. And if you don't do that, then to this guy's point, you're ignorant and you're blind to how women can actually be. So I applaud I've dated enough women now to where, like, if women are like, hey, so I don't want to do this thing, or I just want you to know, I'm in my head like, I'm glad she's testing me. Like, I appreciate it because I understand what they go through. I have empathy for them. I know that it can be hard out there for them to date and to be able to trust guys. And they've probably been through bull crap. And so I'm just the next guy on the plate. She doesn't know me from anybody else in the world. And I want to build that trust. I want her to give me the opportunity to build up that trust to where she feels safe around me. So yeah, bring on the test. And that's ideally how you're going into these things, that you're willing to take on these tests, but that you also have tests of your own that you can give these women out there to let them know. Because here's the other thing too, when you're giving women tests, it means that you're not rushing into a relationship, which lets them know that you're actually taking your time to see that she is deserving of you being in a relationship with her. And women respect that more than a guy who's just going to be after a second date. We should be together. Like, we're thinking women want that. They really don't, because they need time to vet you. But also they're thinking, and what have I done? Like, what the heck have I done to where this guy wants to like wife me up already? Like, that seems absurd. So just giving you guys a little bit of that information. But anyway, it is 5 o'clock. I have places to go. So thank you guys for tuning into this episode. On next week's show, I was going to show you guys, like, I have examples of like a simp message that I sent to a girl back in the day. And I really wanted to give you guys like that. But I think I'm going to save that for next week's show, because I really want to show you guys examples of like how you are when you're with women and the things you're sending them that you think should be fine to get away with, like what it actually looks like. And I've had like 20 years of time between when I wrote these things and how I think about it now. So it's just to give you guys an eye opener of like, you know, in the moment of you doing these simp behaviors, you're not thinking you're being a simp. You're thinking you're standing up for yourself, or you're trying to give your 2 cents about stuff and her behavior and this and that. And then like what it's actually coming across as, and then giving you guys examples of what happens when you stop that behavior. So that'll be next week's show. So that'll be a fun show for you guys to watch. All right. I'm also thinking about moving this show to 5 o'clock, just because I noticed a lot of you guys tend to check into the show. I started at 3:30, but I guess people are still at work and they're not able to see the show yet. So let me know in the chat or in the comments if you guys want me to move the show to a later time, like a 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, because I will definitely do that if it means more of you guys are going to show up. But thank you guys that showed up to today's show. For those of you that are just joining, show the rewatch. And also we will be posting videos throughout the week from this particular live. So yeah, be sure to come into next week's show. It'll either be at 3:30 or 5 o'clock. I'll let you know. But thanks for tuning in. I'm Harry Wilmington, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. I'm out. Peace.
Call this beat Will Smith, cause it slaps hard. Hear it